right. Hello and welcome everybody to 4 Quick Cues Book Talk with Enfys. This is the live interview chat show where I ask pagan authors 4 quick questions determined by a roll of the dice. If you have any questions for our guest today, please pop them into the comments. We'll circle around to them at the end. I'm your host, Enfys Book with Major Arquirna. Joining me today, I'm thrilled to present Christopher Penczak, who is a modern witch working in the Temple of Witchcraft tradition and community he helped co-found. His practice focuses on the intersection of love, will, and wisdom as an ethos for today's witch, and focuses on relationships with the plant realm, the patterns of astrology, traditional occultism, and the use of trance in the craft. He is the author of many books, including the award-winning Temple of Witchcraft series, The Plant Spirit Familiar, and The Mighty Dead, as well as the co-owner of Copper Cauldron Publishing. Christopher keeps an office in New Hampshire, sees clients in person and online for readings, healing, and personal consultation. His vision is of an evolving witchcraft culture, making magic accessible to all, yet preserving the heart of the mystery. And all that can't possibly sum up all the things you have done, but thank you and welcome, Christopher Penczak.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited for this. For those who don't know, I'm especially thrilled for this because Christopher was kind enough to write the foreword for Queer Kabbalah, which is my book coming out in a little less than 2 weeks as we tape this, which is great, or a little 1 day more than 2 weeks, actually. And I was telling him before we went online that the Temple of High Witchcraft was almost always open next to the couch, next to me on the couch when I was writing that book. And now there's this gorgeous new edition of the Inner Temple of Witchcraft hardcover that just came out from Llewellyn. It's really nice, 20th anniversary edition. How are you feeling about all those projects coming to fruition like that?
It's kind of surreal to be doing 20-year anniversary editions, but we'll have Outer Temple's version coming out soon, and got the 3rd one in production and have the 4th one due in the fall. So it's crazy.
Fantastic. That's awesome. So have you ever been interviewed by a D20 before?
I have not, but I feel like I have great familiarity with D20s because my husband's a game player and D&D designer and all that good stuff. So I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, today for you, I brought the sparkly Rainbow Pride dice. I don't know how well it's going to show up there, but we started a tradition 1 show ago. So now it's a tradition and it's official and it's going to happen from now on, where we name the dice for the purposes of this show. So what would you like to name the dice today, Christopher?
I'm going to say Gertrude.
Gertrude, good one. All right. Classic. Gertrude, be good to us. Yeah, happily. All right. So let's give it a roll and see what your first question is going to be. We got an 11, which is, how did you get started writing?
How did I get started writing? It was really taking a notebook. Actually, I have a book that never came out. So I guess that's when I really started writing. And it was all the kind of astrology magic that I was interested in at the time, and just trying to compose something of all my research for myself. And a friend of mine said, oh, you should send this to a publisher. And I did. And the publisher was like, yeah, we're not interested. So that's how I started writing. But good thought, a lot of people get their books rejected and think, this is not for me. But my first book was rejected, and here you go. So that's how I get started.
You keep on keeping on. All right, let's try for another one. Question 2 will be number 9. Is there another magical or pagan author who leaves you in awe?
Well, we were talking about him beforehand, Ivo Dominguez Jr. Definitely someone I have tremendous respect for, love his teachings, love his classes, love his books. So I think, I used to joke, and he jokes back about it now when we do events together, but I always said, I want to be Ivo when I grow up. And he's like, you're grown up now, Christopher, you can be yourself. But that's my sentiment for Ivo. He really his work is really awe-inspiring.
Yeah, his latest book on the elements, amazing.
So
yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Like I went into that thinking, okay, this is going to be really crunchy and academic, and it was, but it was also so easy to read and like so easily digestible at all different levels of expertise, which I absolutely love.
And the thing that gets with me for Ivo is that it's so lived experience. Like he's got all the academics and he's got his sources and he can write in a really clear, communicative sort of way, but it's so lived. I think a lot of people are not writing from a lived experience, and that's what I'm really looking for in magic. I want to know this works. I want to know you've tried it in a group. I want to know, the nuts and bolts of its living experience, and he so conveys that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go for question 3 here. And a reminder to folks watching live, you could throw a question in the chat and we will look at that after the show. All right, question 12. Where do you like to write?
It's changed over the years. I would say most of my popular books was on a laptop sitting on the couch or in the bedroom. But since we've moved to the Temple of Witchcraft, I have a wonderful office space here, and I usually write at my desk.
I wrote much of my book sitting on a futon, and my back did not thank me for it. So I have had to switch to writing in a more lumbar supportive environment.
Some of my books I used to write on tour as I was touring, and I'd have my laptop with me and everything. And I just determined that was crazy and I couldn't do that anymore. But sometimes you get deadlines, so you got to do what you got to do. But I now try to live my life without deadlines. So when the book is done, the book is done, and they'll get it when they get it, and going from there. So I try to be comfortable when I write.
That's awesome. What a gift to be able to live without deadlines.
I have deadlines for other things, but not for writing.
Sure. That's awesome. All right. Breezing through these. Oh, we got the same one again. And we got 15, which is...
Gertrude, good job.
Yeah, good job, Gertrude. Thank you. 15 is a good number. Tell us something you learned in the course of writing your latest book.
Oh, what was my latest book? I guess technically it would have been the updates to the Inner Temple stuff. That was my latest book that came out. And that was really illuminating to go back over something. That was the first time I've gone to an old book and had a chance to update it. So even though it wasn't brand new writing, it was a good 20,000 words that were new to it. And I really loved the synthesis of bringing things from my classes for the last 20 years into the book. So just really learning how much the materials evolved and how much paganism and witchcraft has evolved. There's terms that meant certain things 20 years ago that are much more nuanced and subtle. And I was just put out an article today that talked about the changes in our culture. And, there was a time when everybody read the same 20 books. So we had the same foundation and then kind of branched off from there. And now we don't have that. So things that were default are no longer default unless someone kind of walks you through it, So just trying to walk people through where we're coming from and just seeing how much our community and our culture has grown is probably the thing I've learned the most from that book.
Yeah, I've been having conversations with folks about that lately too. And just I started seriously diving into things about 10 years ago. And even then it was kind of like, well, these are the real ones you got to start with, and then you can branch out if you want. But now I feel like even just looking at your average like witchcraft or paganism 101 book, there are so many good choices out there that I don't think existed for me 10 years ago. There is so much to pick from. Although I wish I'd come across your books earlier, quite frankly, because I'm looking at them like, oh, where was this when I was trying to, yeah. So it's definitely going to be a mainstay on my shelf for recommending to other people and probably checking things once in a while myself too.
Thank you. And it's just interesting to see how many even just good introductory books are coming from different paradigms. There's a point where, witchcraft all kind of encapsulated a certain type of occultism, and now there's just so much variety. It's great, but it can be confusing too.
For sure. Kind of building your own curriculum can be a really daunting task.
Absolutely.
And it's not always easy to tell what level a book is. Is this appropriate for a beginner? Is this more advanced? And it kind of depends on what you've studied before. Maybe you're advanced in one area, but not others, and then you're going to be lost. It's hard to know. Yep. All right. I think Gertrude wants one more roll. What do you say?
All right, go for it.
Gertrude, let's do one more question. Ooh, 14. This is the one I was just staring at. Like, I would love to ask this. What inspires you?
What inspires me? Not to sound trite, but living a magical life. I think it's really living this whole process, doing the magic every day, letting the inspiration kind of flow. A big part of our tradition is that concept of the 3 rays of Awen and the idea of the inspiration that's in the whole cosmos. And I have to say, as weird as this sounds, and maybe it'll happen, knock on wood, it doesn't, but I don't really experience writer's block. I have like more ideas than I can possibly deal with right now. So it's just kind of figuring out what's on fire the most to come out and focusing my time. Had a few books kind of die on the vine, or maybe I'll get back to them someday, but I don't feel burning desire for them at the moment. So it's almost like this window of opportunity that I'm on fire with something, but I feel like my magical practice, my dreams, my spirit relationships with the magical entities that I work with are the things, it's really based on my experience that the books come out through that. So that's the most kind of writing inspiring thing. I'd say in general, nature is hugely inspiring for me, but particularly the relationship with nature and gardening. I find gardening amazing, daunting, humbling, frustrating, loving, magical, all of those things, because sometimes you want it to do the certain thing and you want certain things to grow in a particular way, or your favorite plant doesn't live and the one that you don't want to get, you want to get rid of keeps on going. So just, I think it's such a metaphor for life, and I find it so inspiring. But also the idea of kind of growing your own medicines. And although I'm not against modern medicine, I also think it's really important to take charge of your health as much as you can. So just the empowerment that comes from kind of growing food and medicine has been hugely inspiring in my life.
That's amazing. Yeah, I yearn for a garden. I have lived in an apartment most of my adult life, so someday I will have my own little bit of land that I can create a garden, because I love garden fresh tomatoes and cucumbers more than just about anything. So I frequent the farmers markets out here in the summer, but I would love to grow my own as well. And of course, herbs and everything too. I once did a window garden that became 100% dill, whether I wanted it to be or not. That was my last attempt at gardening in any capacity. So hopefully I won't repeat that. I mean, dill is wonderful. There's only so much I can do with it, though.
Right, absolutely.
All right.
I had gardens overcome with lemon balm, which is lovely because it's one of my favorite, but I'm just like, I could use some other stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you for answering the questions. I'm going to go check and see if there are any questions in the chat. While I do that, and I'm also going to drop your links into the comments for anyone to take a look. If you can tell us about what you are most excited about right now, that would be amazing.
Sure. Well, right now we've opened up the registration for our mystery school, which is probably the big quest that's before us. Yeah, I'm very excited about that. So every year and a half or so, we open up the different levels that are based on the Temple of Witchcraft books. And it's a series of classes through the templeofwitchcraft.org for people who want to check it out. And so they're a little bit longer than a year class. So we usually do the year of Witchcraft 1 through 4, then we take a few months off, and then we do Witchcraft 1 through 5 as options and take a few months off and alternate between the two of them. So we're starting in September for the next round. So I'm very excited about that. And for the first time ever, because we realize that the world is tough and different than it was maybe 10 years ago, our classes are very much timed in the idea that homework is due every month, that it is not a go at your own pace type of class, and you do get evaluated to graduate and move through, because it is a part of becoming our tradition if you want to study that way. But we've created a series of classes that are at your own pace and that don't necessarily confer a degree in the tradition, but bring you into a membership into the community. And just realizing that the way the world has been in the last, I was going to say 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, just to kind of create options for people to engage that don't have the high pressure of having to get the homework in. So that class is called The Pillars of the Witch's Temple. And it kind of uses the metaphor of going into an ancient temple, and each of the sections and rooms is a different lesson. So I'm very excited to launch that, and that'll start in October.
That sounds amazing. I saw your posts about that and reshared them onto the Major Arquerna Facebook page. So they're pretty easy to find on Temple of Witchcraft or on Major Arquerna if you're looking for them. I also included the link to the temple in the batch that I just posted. We do have a question from the audience, in fact. Irene Glass asks, do you have a particular audience you write for, and does it vary from book to book?
That is a great question. And I think back when I was with more mainstream companies, I was more cognizant of who am I writing this book for. And I think as I've shifted a little away from that, I just write the book as it wants to be written. And I'm sure the audience will find it, and the book will find the audience, and the audience will find the book. I think I'm entering a strange territory, as weird as this sounds, of almost every new complex book I do sort of predicates on the idea that you're familiar with some previous books. Because when you're not, and I do try to do recaps and things to make each book, self-sufficient on its own. But if you do too much of that, then you get complaints of people saying, oh, half the book was what I already knew about. But if you don't, then you get complaints of people saying, oh, that was too advanced for me. I don't know what the foundation is. So that's why I like to do sequenced books and numbered books and series of books. But right now I'm really kind of writing for people, not that I'm assuming that they have, but I'm assuming they have the equivalent experience of most of the Temple of Witchcraft series. And if you don't, I refer to those books a lot for different techniques, but I'm really trying to do deeper mystical. So I'm really writing for an audience of people who are interested in mystical, not so much the religious, but the transcendental kind of experience with magic, the spirit contact type of work, and taking it deeper on that level. And some people can have no familiarity with my work and really groove to that. And, they might find my earlier work too simplistic for them. Or some I assume are the ones who've been, following that work, and they're ready for the next stage.
Yeah, that does sound tricky.
Because it's hard.
Balancing, because you don't want to end up being like Marvel Comics in the 90s, where every panel there's a reference to see comic number, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
to get this entire backstory. But at the same time, yeah, you don't want people to be, rehash like, oh, I know this already. Yeah. And it's a delicate balance, I'm sure.
Yeah, I try to reference a lot of like, if you'd like more information on this, you can find that in this section of this book. So that way people can kind of, do a quick glance if they've got some of it, and to be free and flexible to say, if you already know this technique from another point of view, then, just apply it in the way that you want to apply it. But here's what it's about.
Great. Well, I, for one, appreciate all of these works, especially people have got to check out these new 20th anniversary editions. They are super pretty, and also updated versions of the books, and have a lot of great new information and weave in information on, how the witchcraft scene has changed in the last 20 years, which is really helpful. So thank you so much for being here today, Christopher Penczak. Really appreciate it. Thanks for naming Gertrude, and for letting her ask you questions.
Absolutely. A lot of fun.
Yeah. So I hope you have a lovely night. Thank you, everyone who is watching this. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you later.
Thank you.